We are now.
And we are being recorded. Okay, appointments. We have two appointments tonight. The first is concerning the fire station design and engineering. As many of us are aware, the town has voted to appropriate $75,000 for a design and engineering plan for a new fire station. Since that meeting, Chief Cresta, Paul Sanderson, and myself have done some homework. We've met with Mr. John Reese of Reese Construction, who is extremely knowledgeable in this field. He's built numerous fire stations throughout the area and has graciously accepted my invitation to appear here tonight. He has spent a considerable amount of time and energy at his own expense and shares some of the ideas that could point us in the right direction, save the town possibly tens of thousands of dollars, and I think deserves ours and the town's attention. So what I'd like to do is, Paul, would you talk to him? Would you like to say anything? Or?
Absolutely. I would echo everything that you've said. Mr. Ritchie is very local. The Ritchie Construction Company is in Portsmouth. You have a lot of experience, having been chairman of the Portsmouth Planning Board for many years, as well as being a contractor in the area. And we'd love to hear your thoughts about what might happen with our fire station.
All right, great. Well, thank you. I'm going to have to stand with my back to something. So, I appreciate you welcoming me here to the select board and people in the audience. I'm John Ritchie. I'm Ritchie Construction. We've been in business 83 years. Some people know us, some people don't, but we've quietly built a pretty good niche in the police and fire service. We've done locally Brentwood, Newcastle, Epping, Dover. We worked on Portsmouth. We've done a lot of work with Millington. And Vaughn and Paul had asked me to meet just to go over in the early stages the best way to kind of launch this thing. And the conventional way that most people think about is you get an architect, you design plans, you put it out to bid, you get bidders, and then you go from there. What we've seen in the past few years is more of a design-build approach where the design builder gets involved with the town early on, works with the town to develop plans that work with the town, for the town. We can develop budgets as we go along. I just started with this board, just again, for people that may not be familiar, Budding Town's Brentwood. That was in 2010. Epping was back in 2001, Newcastle. So I just use those as a point of reference. Through the years, I have talked to Chief Cresta, and in short time, we have just kicked around a few ideas which have morphed themselves into a pretty well-designed floor plan for a potential station. Again, it's relatively easy in the design-build phase where a designer, builder, which I guess I'm kind of both, develops plans that kind of mirror the present, the future needs of the town. Set up floor plans, bays that can house it, backup generator, for those times when towns lose power and residents need a place to stay. So this is kind of what we developed, was a 3-bay garage. There's a meeting room. I don't really want to get into particulars. I can if the board would like to. So that's kind of what Chief and I had developed over time. There's a second floor, completely ADA accessible. And this by no means is cast in stone. It's just some ideas to generate a meeting such as this. That's all it is. So again, we did the first floor with a washroom, things that they would need. We did a second floor that would be accessible by an elevator, which public facilities would need to be. There's a meeting room upstairs. There's a multi-purpose room, could be used for many different functions. That kind of bore itself to some quick elevations of what the building may look like. Again, these are just, I don't know, we may have 20, 30, 40 hours into it. But the point is, on a design build, you can develop plans such as this that you can then go out to bid and start develop pricing, where in a conventional, you hire an architect, I need $50,000 to design a set of plans that we don't know what the costs are. This develops plans while you develop pricing, while you work with budgets, while you work with the town, the building committee, the chief. All those things run in parallel. So at the end of the job, you have a building that's typically delivered on time and under budget, meets the chief's, the select board, and the town's needs. It's a very simple process. A smaller town such as Greenland, the onus is really on the design-build contractor, where a plan and spec, which is typical, really the onus at that point is on the town. Because the plans are developed, you paid for them, now you put it out to bid. So I'm here maybe just to suggest a design-build approach. There's a 3-page handout that I provided with the select board. If you want electronic copies to send, the front page is just some photos which are similar to this. The second page is basically a list of projects we've done. And if you look, there's several that have design-build. We use a design-build approach for Newcastle, for Gilmanton, for Brentwood, for Epping, for New Hampton, for Franconia. It's really a pretty efficient and effective process where the town and the chief kind of know what they need today. They know what their needs are in the future. It's a collaboration. Again, it's a big parallel process that seems to kind of work for everybody involved. So that's kind of my quick, my hope is that people have questions and aren't here to listen to me, but I do just want to say in a short time, it's, these could go out to bid and probably get 90% complete bids just based on what you see here. So it's a pretty efficient process, works pretty well. On the bottom, on that sheet, I did a quick timeline, it doesn't matter what year this is for, but basically looking for a March town vote, we always work backwards. Develop preliminary floor plans and a scope of work September or October. This to me would be the preliminary plans. Scope of work is relatively easy. Advertise, interview, and select a design-build contractor. That would be October, November. Develop revised floor plans and set budgets for December, January to be placed on the warrant article. Town vote in March. And then typically you want to start construction 3 months later so that you get your site plan approval in front of the planning board, typically in April, May. If you got any state permits, those might be 60 days. So that's March, April, May into June, and then typically a July 1 start. I like the July start date because you're a little bit behind the school start dates, and it seems to work for labor pretty well. So the delivery method is design-build versus plan and spec. Me personally, I'm a big proponent of design-build for smaller communities. The budget's defined early in the process and continuously maintained through highly collaborative. Accountability, it stays with the... Sorry, no problem. So basically, it's really to keep this process super simple. I do not see $75,000 needed to do a feasibility or design up front. Typically, we would see on a $2 million project, total engineering and design fees to be $60,000 to $70,000 for everything, for civil, for structure, for architecture. So $75,000, in my opinion, out of the gate should cover all your engineering costs for the whole project.
Thank you, John. Ralph?
Yes.
You have any comments?
No, we tried to design the station so it kind of looked like basically the center of town, designing it so it looked like it fit in. And the needs, there should be no problem for needs, in the housing of the firefighters and us growing for the next probably 15 or 20 years anyway.
Okay, all right. Just for the information, if anybody doesn't know, the fire station we have right now is kind of antiquated. These fire trucks barely fit in. It was great back in the old days when you had the old hook and ladder type of thing, but today you have sophisticated fire trucks, and in order to get emergency response people out quickly, you need to have a good building. Definitely the way we've got to go. We're losing our volunteers. We used to be a volunteer fire department. We aren't anymore. This is something that's not just endemic to our town, but this is happening across the country. And so we have to be looking at hiring some fire department personnel. It's just something that just has to be done. In order to do that, we're gonna have to have a facility that can house them, that can, a place that they can sleep overnight and make it comfortable for them, so if they have to get up at 2 in the morning and rush out, they can do it. So that's just, I know there are a lot of people in town that understand that, but there are some that don't, so I just wanted to update you on that.
I think just a couple of things to add. What people may not remember is last year, we had a company called Municipal Resources, MRI, Municipal Resources Incorporated. They're a firm that's out of New Hampton, New Hampshire, and they came in and did, as consulting work for us, a basic needs assessment. And so therefore, that's how we have come to the approximate size of the building here to deal with the particular needs that they have identified in that study. Also, the site is right here at Town Hall. And the exact placement of it on this site has not yet been determined. That's part of our initial evaluation to determine whether it should be over where the Public Works building is or whether it should be part of our continuing building complex here. That hasn't yet been determined, and that's part of our initial site assessment to get recommendations and advice as to what we should do. So we're not just inventing this. We have already done that preliminary work, and that's how we come to this size and come to this site.
And then in March, we had Article 8 approved $75,000 for the purpose of the design and engineering of a new fire station.
Yes.
So, does anybody out here have any questions that they would like to present? Go ahead.
Leonard Schwab, Great Bay Drive West. Is this design amenable to any parts of it being done in a modular form, or is it all going to be stick-built?
That's a great question. We would most likely prefabricate it. Prefabricate walls. You know, we did Brentwood. It's got a 92-foot clear span. We built sections of the 92-foot clear span on the ground and flew them up. Wall panels, New Hampton and Franconia. We prefabbed all the walls off-site. Saved us about 3 weeks. So there's a company called Wallace, right in New Hampshire, that prefabs them. So I would say 70% certain that we would prefab. It saves you time. Small site like this, there's not a big laydown area, so that's a great question.
Typical construction time, beginning to end? What's the typical construction time?
6 to 7 months. And the nice thing about these facilities is, you know, they really are multi-use. So backup generator, spray foam, built out of wood. They're thermally efficient. They're all LED, possible solar if we want to do that. It really is a town building. It's not just for the fire department. Again, I've seen instances, particularly up in Franconia, where, you know, vast areas lose power. They can always go to the fire station, a warm meal, a place to stay. It's all powered by a backup generator, and they really are for the town's use, not just for the fire department's use.
I have a question, I guess I should address to you or to the chief. How many ambulances and how many fire trucks do we currently have?
We have one ambulance and one tank truck and 2 fire engines and a utility truck.
Is that enough bays?
Yes, well, those are drive-through bays. Those are 88 feet long from what is that correct, John?
84 feet.
84 feet. So they're going to be couple will be nose and tail. And we did there's some expansion, place for expansion there also.
Thank you for your questions, Leonard. Yes, go ahead.
Marcia McLaughlin. My question is, I understand this is a concept design, but has there been a request for proposal for competing bids for this, or not yet?
This is strictly preliminary. This is just, you know, we're just trying to spearhead this and get something going in the right direction.
I mean, well, yeah, I understand that, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
There will be, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, well, John, I
Thank you.
appreciate your
My pleasure.
and showing us this. I think it gives the town a good idea of, what we're looking at.
Excellent. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, secondly, we have Chief Laurent with us to talk about the light on Spring Hill Road.
Yes, so, I've talked to some residents at Spring Hill Road that would like the area lit via a street light in front of kind of number 2, which is right when you turn onto the street. You go up a little ways, but they wanted a street light. I went out, obviously it's a dead end road, so it's not a high traffic area by any means. The houses are even spread far apart, so it is very dark when you go up there. I don't think that there's a need as far as for traffic or vehicle safety. But, you know, it's always going to make a place safer to have a light of any kind. It's my understanding that they had, a couple of years ago, they had some people drinking down there. They've had, you know, people drive down and obviously it's a dead end. It makes some people nervous. So I did talk to them. I told them that it would be up to the Board of Selectmen. I talked to Eversource. They said the range of price would be between $200 and $300 to put up a streetlight. And then with the LEDs, they're estimating $6 a month for the electricity. And that's the only cost that they seem to have.
Okay. I know that we're relative, the people I bought my house from had a street light put up in back of their place too, but they did it at their own expense.
Yep.
This was no expense to the town. As a matter of fact, I was paying for a light I didn't realize I was paying for about 2 years.
I did ask if there was a way to apply and get permission to put a solar light or something on one of their poles, and it's not. They don't allow anything on their poles as far as lights or equipment or cameras or anything like that.
Do you get a lot of calls about kids drinking down there? Or?
No. We've never gotten any as far as I know. I think that the residents handled some of it themselves, so I did encourage them to call if there was any issues like that. And like I said, it was a couple of years ago, so I think it's more peace of mind that they're looking for. I told them that, you know, that obviously on a dead-end road, very dark, but at the same time, it's not a traffic concern by any means.
Well, $200 or $300 is not a lot of money. $6 a month doesn't amount to a lot of money, but I'll entertain some. Go ahead.
Do you have the fear that if you grant that everybody will want to light?
No, that was my next thing. It's going to be a lit up
Just saying,
city,
just
right?
saying.
Yeah. And I appreciate your comments to it. Yeah.
Well, and I was surprised, you know, I asked Karen, how many streetlights do we even have in town? You know, and in my head, for some reason, I was thinking, you know, 30, 220. 220 streetlights in town. Of course, I would assume that a lot of that's on 33 or near or on roads that are well traveled, but.
Which we put on, you know, LED.
Yes.
Saves the town a lot of money.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
good.
we spend an average, well, with this first year in LED, I don't know what the total will come, but prior to LED, we spent between $18,000 and $20,000 a year on streetlight electricity.
Is there anybody here from Spring Hill that would like to comment on that?
Where is it?
Yeah.
Up in Winnetka. Yeah.
Okay, comments from the board?
Is this a state-maintained portion of Winnicott or a town-maintained portion?
It's on Spring Hill, which is town maintained.
Okay.
It's around the corner.
But it's off of the intersection?
Yes, off of the intersection, probably, I would guess, 200 feet, 300 feet.
Okay. So nothing to do with the state in any way?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And the last request that came to the board was also a dead-end street on Lane Ave, and that one was denied. But it was at the very end of the dead end, not near the beginning of the dead end.
Okay, I do appreciate your comments, and I think a lot of the town would probably think the same way too. It would be my opinion that I wouldn't have a problem if they wanted to put one up there and pay for it and pay the electric bill. That would be all right with me. But I certainly couldn't, you know, recommend the town pay for something like that, or 60 or 70 more.
Well, you know, my name's Ed Humbrecht. We own 3 pieces of property here in Greenwood. So obviously, you know, one goes in, we want 3 at each one of our properties.
And not only that, I'm gonna get my life back on.
There you go.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay. I think,
No action was
no
taken.
action, yeah. Mhm. Okay, now we come to one of our favorite topics. The changing of street names and street numbers for the purpose of expediting emergency responses. Tara, I'm going to let you kind of, before I open this up to the public, I'm going to let you just explain what's going on and,
Yeah, so I would assume that most people already know kind of how this works by now, just because what we like to call Great Bay East-East to Great Bay West-West had done this a couple of years ago. On Dearborn Road, we did a couple of months ago. So basically what we're trying to accomplish is addressing parts of the town that can be confusing, either numbering or name-wise, in order to allow emergency personnel to get to you faster. This is something that has been going on nationwide for a long time.
to see by your shirt, you just came back from.
That's right, that's right. Got things to do. So basically 911 comes through the town and identifies some things. Then we work with them and identify, you know, problem areas or what could we do about this, gives us suggestions and on and on. Tonight what we're dealing with is unfortunately all of the bays that are in Greenland. And it's wonderful because we love the bay and it's definitely a big part of our town. But as we've developed, it's gotten used over and over and over again. So Great Bay Drive and Great Bay Drive East and West are two of the areas tonight that we're hoping to make less confusing, just because it's used so much. So we would propose, and we've put up the numbering. This is kind of small, but you'll see that basically the numbers are part of it. That we're looking for incremental addressing. So it's every 50 feet comes another number. So that's how you get the different numbers that are up here. You'll notice that this one just says Road Y, and I think Great Bay East West says Road X. So it's not, for 911, it's not a recommendation about who has what road name, as long as it's not confusing to another name we already have in town, or it doesn't have some sort of real common connotation or something. But other than that, you know, Road Y and Road X, we just want the numbering to be incremental, like I said, and we want it to be clear so that any time that the fire department or the police department or what we call mutual aid, which is asking other towns to help us, that they can get there without any delay at all. And whether it's seconds or minutes, it does make a difference.
So are you proposing renaming Great Bay at the intersection?
Excuse me, hold it. You need to give your name. I know you've done it before.
Oh, sorry, Ed Humbrecht.
Yes.
I live on Great Bay Road.
Okay.
And are you proposing to change the name of Great Bay at the intersection of Dearborn East?
Well, Dearborn, the top half that connects with Route 33 has already accepted to be Dearborn all the way out there.
What?
This is new information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the first part of Great Bay Road, from Route 33 to the intersection here with Dearborn Road, has been renamed Dearborn Road from the beginning all the way down. So it doesn't change, and it follows the flow that is kind of assumed as you get to that intersection and just go straight. So that's not going to be effective until January 3rd of next year. But we've already gone through that. So not only does the road name not change here at Great Bay Road, but we got rid of Great Bay Drive. So it's Dearborn from Route 33 all the way down to what is now Great Bay Drive East and West. As far as Great Bay Road and Great Bay Drive East and West, we don't have a recommendation for which names they are. But they need to be different, obviously. We can't have two Great Bays. And the numbering is what we're recommending here. Because obviously, since this is now Dearborn up to 33, the numbering needs to start at that intersection. Yes, ma'am?
Priscilla Barassa, Great Bay Road. You're saying that's gonna be Dearborn Road from the 33, so those are all gonna be renumbered?
Yes, renamed and renumbered. The Dearborn Road ones has already been voted on.
Who voted on that, excuse me, how was that voted?
How was that voted? Just like this. We had a meeting, we had a discussion with the residents, then we had a second meeting where the vote takes place. We do these all through a series of meetings. Just like tonight with you guys, we send out letters and everybody comes and we discuss it. And it's a 2-meeting process. So that's what tonight will be. Tonight will be a discussion, feedback, things like that. And then the next meeting is when the Board of Selectmen decide what changes are going to take place. So the numbering is really important for the increment. If you'll notice on Great Bay East and West, the smaller numbers are closer to the center of Greenland. That's how 911 always recommends, is that's how you know which end is the lower numbers. So that's why it starts over here. But it goes out to the point, obviously, and in the same increment, same 50-foot increments. And the 50-foot increments allow, even though it's not very probable down in this area, but in 100 years, if they split some land or if they allow for further building, then it allows enough numbers so that you can add people in without changing it again. Yes, ma'am.
What happens to that section, Paul, help me, Dearborn Road, what's that development of?
On Dearborn Road?
Road, you mean,
Orchard Hill?
you mean where Jim lives on Ralston Avenue?
No, I know what you meant, but that, Bay Ridge, what
Bay
happens
Ridge
to Bay Ridge?
has already been changed.
Yeah, that's been
It's already
changed.
been changed?
Yes, we are now Osprey Cove. So believe me, we understand.
There we go.
Chester and I both live there. We understand your pain better than you know.
There's a lot of bays in Greenland, as you know, so a lot of them have already felt this pain. Bay Ridge is one of them. Bayview,
Bay Shore.
Bay Shore. There was a lot of them that have already been. So hence where we are tonight.
Go ahead, Nate.
Kid Penny, I live on 21 Great Bay Drive East. I don't remember if there's ever been a problem down in the neighborhood with people getting lost or figuring out these Great Bay Drive East, West, and that kind of a deal. I'm just wondering if we're a problem with looking for a fix.
No, I understand. Now, and we're going to try to make it so it never is a problem.
But
We're
currently,
having problems with,
we've been living down there about 50 years.
yeah,
I don't remember, and there's been a lot of the town's responses. We've had ambulances. I've had a couple of those ambulance rides, by the way. Not bad. I don't think it's really a big deal to do this, because I don't think it's a problem. That's what I'm
Could I
saying.
comment?
thank you.
Excuse me, could I comment?
Go ahead.
Sir, one of the reasons why 911 makes this recommendation is, although Greenland Fire Department, Greenland Police Department, pretty much probably already know where you live, you've been there for many years. But what happens is that for some reason they're out on another call, mutual aid has to come in. They might not necessarily know exactly all the roads in town and how to get to you as quickly as possible. So that's why we make this recommendation, to help out not only Greenland Fire Department, Police Department, but also the mutual aid.
Could we get your name, please?
Yes, Kenny Lynn Dempsey, and I'm with the State of New Hampshire Emergency Communications.
All right, go ahead.
David Wallowitz. I have a comment. I guess I'm not sure what you're saying. Are you saying that your criteria is that if there are many names, if the same name is used many times, that they have to change?
That's the recommendation the state 911 makes, definitely. And there is an RSA as well. Any new roads that are built cannot have a duplicate or similar sounding road name. And there is an RSA, it's 231-133.
So how many, what's the criteria for how many of the same name can be in Greenland, for example?
Well, I don't know if there's an exact criteria, but I mean, 1-to-1. I mean, a duplicate to a duplicate.
Well, so Great Bay aside, are you saying, I'm trying to understand, is there a limit on the number of bays?
Well, because of being able to confuse them easily, I would say that any road starting with Bay, there can be only one, and possibly having Bay as a second name, there could possibly be one.
And so what about ending with Bay? Can only be one?
Yes.
So there's 8 roads in Greenland ending with the same name. Are they all going to change?
Yes.
So every farm road is going to no longer, there'll only be one farm, one road ending in farm? Because there's 8 of them now.
With farms?
Yes.
I don't know that we've gone over specific farms, but
Well, these are
it would
roads.
be something we'd be
They're not
looking
actual
at.
farms, these are roads.
No, I know.
Right.
I don't know if the word farm is one of the ones that we
There's
have, but we're not done.
There's 8 roads ending in farm, there's 5 roads with hill, there's 5 roads with view. So they're all, you're saying under your criteria, I just want to make sure I understand the criteria. Under your criteria, they can't remain.
The criteria of anything that's too similar would be recommended for change.
So another question, because I'm trying to figure out 2 things that are vague. So you started out saying, and this, I understand this, that Great Bay Road and Great Bay Drive can't remain. Are you saying one of them can?
That's going to be up to the Board of Selectmen as far as if one of these can keep the name or not.
Okay.
We've been there longest, can't we have it?
And is there, well, I'll ask the selectmen what criteria they would use in a minute, but is there anything, since we are presumably having input among ourselves, is there anything to stop the people who live on the bay, for example, to call the road on the bay, just to give you a hypothetical? Is there any criteria?
Like to use the Bay word, but just in a different.
On the bay, for example. I'm
On
just
the bay.
throwing something out. I'm trying to figure your criteria out because we have to have a discussion among ourselves.
Right.
And if we don't understand your criteria, I mean, there's.
Okay, well.
Then we would have trouble having a discussion.
Yes, maybe I could explain it a little bit better. When I first started here and drove around and the officers were showing me the town, and it was, Great Bay this and Great Bay that, and we had Great Bay East and Great Bay East, and then we had, Bayside, Bay Ridge, Bayview, all these, Bay Shore. It was very confusing. Of course I learned it because I'm going to be the chief of this town.
I understand.
Stratum, on the other hand, they come to help us, just like Rye does in Northampton, as you can imagine, and they're not going to drive our roads consistently in order to make sure that they're clear. I personally would recommend no other bays in this town.
No other bays.
Yep.
We already are bays.
Look, if one of them kept the Great Bay name, I wouldn't be heartbroken, because I think that would be very clear that there was a Great Bay.
But the irony is, for example, since the 2 selectmen already brought this up, that they felt the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Their pain was to take a different body of water and a cove and create a new road when there already was a road ending in cove. And that would seem
Except
to
that
be
cove-
inconsistent with your standard.
Cove is like a street or a road or a way or a.
No.
Cove is different.
Oh, yes, it is. I disagree with
Yeah,
that.
it is,
It's officially.
it is an official road suffix, it's in publication
suffix.
20.
And if I'm
Like trail.
So I understand.
Wait a minute, order please, all right? What they're trying to do is make it safe for you, is what they're trying to do. Now, I don't know what your agenda is. Farm road, farm this and farm that. I understand what you're saying, but I think it's pretty clear to me. I'm not a lawyer, but it's pretty clear to me what it is they're trying to do. And I don't see why reasonable people can't get together and make that work.
Okay.
And I would think you're a reasonable person, I can't you make that work.
Let me answer your question. You asked me a specific question, I will answer it.
All right?
You want to know what my agenda is?
Yes.
My agenda is that the selectmen and the town have to have articulable criteria so that this is a reasonable, rational decision, cannot be arbitrary. You don't have the authority to make arbitrary decisions and impose them on us. So all I'm asking is, what are the criteria? Because we, as a group, have to discuss it among ourselves. But when I hear, for example, from the 911 person, whose name I can't remember, and she says that the roads you can't have more than one road ending with the same, I can go through a list, I can name 3 hills, 8 farms, so that criteria sounds arbitrary. So all I'm saying is that, and I understand that there's this, and I've heard this before, that they don't want to have too many bays in town. I get that. I don't want confusion. I understand that. But there are ways to use the word bay, for example, and not be confusing.
Give me a way.
I said on the bay.
Give me 2 bay road names that would not be confusing.
Well, on the bay.
On the bay, and what's another one?
Well, you are Great Bay.
Great Bay. Okay, well, I think that these people take that into consideration, and they have a lot of experience in this. They don't just do this with our town, they do it with the whole state. And they study this type of thing, so they know, because they've talked to emergency response responders, is this confusing to you? And if it is, then they do away with it. You know, I mean, I had to go through it myself. I mean, I had to have my street name number changed too. So I also know it. These aren't the only 2. So all we're trying to do is make this place safer for everybody that's here. I know it's not easy.
Well, I understand that. I'm having trouble with why there can be 4 brooks. Well, and brook is not, and is not.
I'd like to say something, sir. We're not done with this process yet. We have multiple neighborhoods to go through, and probably more when we think we're done. So,
thank you.
Does that answer that question?
It does. Thank you.
One thing too, I'm not sure if everyone realizes that, as was stated earlier, the volunteer fire department is gone, basically. We're bringing people in from Rochester who are spending the night here. Do you want them to find your house at 2 o'clock in the morning if it's on fire? Do you want them to hear the word on the bay and all of a sudden, you know, they head up Great Bay Road when they should be going down towards Great Bay Drive as is? You know, it's a matter of safety.
They found me Christmas morning.
Okay.
But if she could address that, because she's got the standardization.
Yeah, I do have the standardization, and if you wanted to go on the state website under emergency communications, there's an addressing standards guide on there that breaks down what the criteria is. And we get these standards from NENA, which is the National Emergency Number Association. So it's not just the state, these are national guidelines of the best practices that have been found, and that is.
So what's the website?
The exact website off the top of my head, I don't know the.
Just point me in the
But
right
just
direction.
go to Safe New Hampshire Emergency Communications.
Yeah.
And you should be able to find it there, and if not, at the end, I'll give you my card, and I can forward that information to you. Okay?
David, it's nh.gov, which is the state website. Go to the Department of Safety, Bureau of Emergency Communications.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Jody Thomas, I live at 33 Great Bay Drive East. Since we're talking really about Great Bay Road and Great Bay Drive, and Great Bay Drive is on Great Bay, it would make geographical sense and sense to me to allow Great Bay Drive, with the number changes, to be Great Bay Drive. The other people who hate me on Great Bay Road, it doesn't go to the bay.
Yes, it does. Yes,
Well, it doesn't exactly.
it does.
You can't see the bay from from every house.
Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Go ahead.
Kimberly Bigney, 25 Great Bay Drive East. I was just wondering, are our emergency personnel relying upon memory or knowledge of the town to get them somewhere, or are they not using some sort of database like GPS like everyone else is?
We don't use GPS. We do if you say that your dog is loose. But if someone calls and we're out on the road, they call dispatch, and they say that someone is breaking into their house, we have to have the knowledge. That's a test, if you want to call it that you have to know the town before you can be taking care of the town. So they have to be able to go there with lights, with siren, without anybody else, putting anyone else in danger on the road, while taking information and giving information over the radio as they drive. So if you could imagine that with also typing into GPS as you're going, it's just not something that is recommended to do. It's not best practice.
I think you spoke earlier about firefighters from different towns.
Right. And so
they would, I would assume, need some GPS or someone who's local to ride.
Well, usually what happens with that is if, let's say, there was a call for Stratum right now and they said, Chief Laurent, you need to respond. And I responded, and I would expect the dispatcher on the radio to say, okay, go down 33, take your second right onto this, do that, and guide them in. So we do give directions, voice directions to the dispatchers, and they can talk us through. Of course, they're in Brentwood.
So because we're dealing with an antiquated technology system, which may or may not be more efficient or safer,
It's not antiquated.
If we're dealing with that sort of a
We're
situation
not-
to rename all the names, that's
We're not dealing with the antiquated service.
No,
If you're driving 90 with blue lights and sirens with other traffic and talking on and off a radio, I can't imagine that you would find that safe to do while I'm also typing in or looking at a GPS.
so,
That it comes down to safety of our officers and what they've proven.
GPS does have voice command, like
It
a
does.
dispatcher.
It does. So maybe I should turn off my radio for a minute and then hit the button that says accept what I'm about to say, and then say that before I turn on my sirens and let them give me information about if someone's armed or not.
But it has
It's-
a map, too. I mean, they can look at the map as they're driving.
Have you ever driven 90 at night?
And additionally, you're going to assume that I heard Bay Shore. I'm going to an armed intruder or a person having a heart attack, and I hear Bay Shore and I think Bayview or Bay Ridge. So it's not just, okay, give me the call and I'll type it in. If you tell me, like I said, you have a lost dog, absolutely. I'll type it into GPS if you want. I will, take some time to bring some food or a leash or, whatever it is. But it's the 1% of calls where someone's going to get hurt or die that I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about, please get down here because there's a weird guy walking around. I'll get there. I'll find a way no matter what.
We've seen them.
Tom DeCoster, 20 Great Bay Drive East. What I'm hearing is if the name is significantly different or easily distinguishable, that's acceptable. Even though it may have Bay in it, if there's something that makes it unique or distinct. For example, if you had Great Bay Drive, east, west, whatever you want to call it, or just Great Bay Drive, it's on the bay, that's pretty obvious. And Great Bay Fields, because it's all inland,
and you
there's
have
nothing on the bay.
You have two.
Well, you have two Great Bay,
Yeah.
but the fields in Great Bay are nothing like the Great Bay itself. I consider those to be very significantly different names.
But if you were calling in an emergency or if you had someone at your house that was calling, they may not get out the fields. It's Great Bay. You need to get to me on Great Bay.
Or even on the road signage, if you had somebody traveling.
So the ultimate determination is whether you think one of your officers can distinguish every road in the town by simply hearing its name and never be mistaken with any other road.
No,
They all have to be.
It's based on best practices, which has been years and decades of studies. It's not, if you think that we're getting pleasure in changing your addresses, absolutely not. I don't want to change any of them. I want you guys to each have every name that you want.
I have a solution which everybody on my road would agree with. We'll keep calling ours Great Bay Drive and the other people can change their names. I'm not sure how you sort that out.
We had Great Bay Road first, so we should keep it.
Is there anybody else that has any,
Can
Go
I
ahead.
just follow up to the previous question
Yeah, go ahead.
about the mapping?
Mhm.
With 911, we have maps and we have a field crew, they go out, they GPS all the points. So, and that data goes into the dispatch, and that's the information that Tara gets and her people get when they're going out on the road. Now, your question was as far as GPS. Have you ever used your Google to go somewhere to navigate, and then it brings you to the completely wrong place?
You shouldn't use Google, because it's really good.
But
But
that's
there are
the
other
reason.
examples that are bad, I acknowledge.
Yeah, but those things happen with the online ones because, you know, it's Google or Apple or Bing. I mean, they can only get down to update their records so often versus the state where we're constantly updating information. So our information is more accurate, so it's more accurate for Tara to listen to information that's dispatched to her on the phone other than typing in an address and then using some navigation system to navigate.
I guess my follow-on question, if the name doesn't seem to be significantly different enough to be suitable, how do you choose who gets to keep their name and everyone else has to change theirs?
well, actually, we let you do that. I mean, we encourage you to do it. We encourage you to get together to, you know, come up with some names because you live there. I mean, we will, if we have to, we'll come up with the names. But we encourage, and this has worked throughout all the past meetings that we've had. It's worked with everybody else, and they've gotten together and come up with some good names for their roads. So we encourage you to do that, get together, because we're not going to do it until the next meeting.
I think that's going to be difficult.
Is this like the Hatfields and the boys? Yes, go ahead.
Karen Johnson, 387 Great Bay Road. And, yeah, I just wanted to say that I have a name proposal for Great Bay Road, that section. And I've talked to the Gowans, Ed and Mary, and they've talked to Tom and Barbara. And I wanted to propose Gowan Farm Road, never
Okay.
mind the farm issue,
Oh, my God.
or Gowan Road because it used to be their farm area. I also think it would be nice if Great Bay Drive could remain as Great Bay Drive because it's on Great Bay. I also have a question about the numbering because my eyes are.
Let me address your first question. If
Okay.
anybody has any suggestions, please write them down and give them over to Karen.
And I've got that.
Okay, great.
And she will take all the names down
You know,
here.
there's a Falmouth Farm Road in Stratford.
So we don't go into other towns because we'd have a duplicate on everything.
Yeah, but the Winnicott Road, people come in, they just say Gowan Farm Road.
Yeah.
I love the name, but.
Okay.
The Gowan Farm Road in Stratford.
Yeah, right, but it's a different town. There's a Winnicott Road in Stratham and a Winnicott in Greenland.
But they're very close.
Yeah.
We're driving 90 miles an hour when they just
Yeah, I don't want to go there. Different town.
If you're driving 90 miles an hour, I want
Every
to.
town has a
Right.
Chief Loretta's driving the 90 miles.
Okay.
And there's tons
And they're all
of them.
going.
Okay, what is your second question?
So the numbering, I think between 367 and 387, the new numbers are 49 and 51. Is that
Yes.
what that says? There's actually a right-of-way between those two that goes to the lot that Tom and John own.
Yep.
Not John. Tom and Ed own. Yes, sir. So should that be accounted for if you're
Yes.
doing your numbering?
Yep. We can look
To
at,
account for that?
we can look at that before the next meeting.
Okay.
And you are allowing back lots with three driveways to be three driveways and not conjoined as was previously done on that road?
The only thing that 911 recommends is if there's 3 houses or more off of a single driveway, that the driveway gets named as a private road. If they have separate driveways, it's not a problem. If there's only 2, it's not a problem.
What about the 3 or 4 already done on Great Bay Road?
But they have separate driveways.
Their access is on Great Bay Road, it's not off of that shared driveway.
The one next to me, they both come off the right of way to the back.
Okay, that's 2.
324, 310, and 338. I think all access from that.
24.
310 and 338 access
310 and
from one
338.
driveway.
Right.
Just two.
And 324 accesses through Great Bay.
Great Bay, yeah.
Right there.
Okay, any other, go ahead.
I'm Karen Bailey on Great Bay Road. Just to recap, do I understand it that everyone on Great Bay and everyone on Great Bay Drive East and West is being renumbered?
Yes.
So everyone in the room has something in common. We're all going to have to have new address labels and new everything else. It's all going to change no matter what. So really, if we all have change in common, it's just about what is the change that is best for the town, not necessarily best for us, because everybody is getting a change, period.
And that's true. We have over the time kind of whittled it down to make it as easy as possible, because we know it's never fun. Everyone, once a decision is made, will get a packet. You'll have letters that go to your mortgage company. You'll have a list of utilities and common businesses to switch it to with phone numbers, email addresses, things like that. You'll have a letter that explains what to do if someone says that, you know, your new address won't be accepted. They push it through to be accepted by Google and other mapping things. Of course, it's up to them when they pick it up, but at least they push it out to them. And you don't need to worry about forwarding your mail because we are communicating directly with the post office. So at least that will be done for you.
May I ask how many homes are on Great Bay Road and how many are on Great Bay Drive East and West? In other words, how many are we talking on each?
Way. 13
and 14.
It's very close. Well, I was trying, people. I was really working at it.
So this is meeting 1 of 2. When is the next meeting? And
the next selectmen's meeting.
Next selectmen's meeting, and should we bring our suggested names to you at that time?
It's preferable beforehand, because then any names suggestions that I get in, I get over to the chief, so that 911 can check it to make sure it works.
That would help her. Thank you.
I mean, one of them off of Bayside, one of the Brackett Streets, they named it Rue d'Aquitaine. They used French, and that was fine.
How many numbers potentially would be on Great Bay Road as it stands now when it's renumbered compared to Great Bay Drive East?
That's what she just asked.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear.
14 on this part and 13 on that
When it's
part.
after it's renumbered?
Yes.
Even with right-of-way spacing and everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Deborah Batten, Greenwood, New Hampshire. I guess, well, eventually there'll be a lot more houses, I guess, on Great Bay Road. But anyways, does anybody have an idea of when Great Bay Drive East was actually created, named? I mean, year-wise?
Jim does.
I'm sure you I mean, I have a general idea, but I'm sure some of you don't.
40s or 50s.
Right, and my family's been there since 1640. Great Bay Road is a state road. I'm very happy about that. They did a wonderful job paving. And again, my family's been there a long time. I have the farm down there, what's left of it. And again, I have the, railroad station, which is Great Bay Station. I bought it to try to keep it the way it is. So I guess it'll be Gowan's farm station now. And I love the Gowans, but again, there's no farm there anymore. I mean, I think it's very pertinent to stay with some facts in this. And, I understand you guys are on the bay, I'm happy for you. But I do believe in sticking with which is more historically correct. And I believe Great Bay Road needs to stay Great Bay Road, whether I'm there or not.
I second it.
Me too.
Plus we have 14, not 13. Anybody have one more question before we close the public hearing? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, did we get a timeline of when a decision would be made and then?
The next
I understood the
meeting.
packet, but then when does the name change and address go into effect?
Oh, like 6th of January?
Yeah,
January.
January 3rd.
Oh, January 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
okay, thank you.
But the second meeting is at the next board.
Yeah,
of
yes,
meeting.
I just knew,
Yeah,
when does the new
Yeah,
address?
after Christmas, so the Christmas cards and all that are all good.
Gotcha.
Good tradition.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Ask for any comments from the board. 3:30.
No, I can give you my email address if you have suggestions for names. Email them in.
If anyone wants some of the maps printed out, we have a couple, if you're more than happy to grab them. If you want to grab, you're welcome to have them. These are really small, but then they have them bigger behind, each one is printed out.
Well, one is printed.
So it's a section. So this one's like really kind of small, the other one is either one.
I have a recommended name.
Yes, the red is the recommended.
Chocolate and green.
I don't.
No one has it.
So the second, third, it breaks it down into smaller sections, you see. This is both of them, this is just one of them. Yeah, but you can grab all these
You all knew this. You can hear the tension. I'm trying to think about otherwise, you're not going to have one person completely unwilling. So, but if we could, so I guess, what is it about that alternative that bothers you? Why is that confusing?
Because I think it could be easily confused by someone coming from another town.
How's it confusing? Look how many farms you have. Look at how many hills
I
you
understand
have.
that, but they don't say over the farm, they say the first thing.
It's so on the way. Yeah, exactly.
It's not my recommendation, but if you can convince the board that.
No, that's exactly why it's not to be. No one else to move the lot. I mean, you said on the, confusing, why is it?
We don't have any other, we don't have any other.
You don't have any on there. I mean, seriously.
If you said like volcanic bay, I could get on board for that, something that is not like anything else.
Okay, estuary bed. Estuary bed.
Oh, you're welcome.
I know that.
You know that. I know I'll stick around tonight because
Tell them I said hello.
Everybody,
My wife sees them amongst our neighbors.
order. Thank you, I'll be in touch with you. We'll
Thank
get
you,
together,
I
all right?
appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I will. Yes, sir. Yes, this afternoon with his family and stuff there, so.
Okay, the next order of business is the approval of the minutes of July 9th.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of Monday, July 9th, as they have been amended as it's spelling on page 6.
Second.
Have a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Under old business, we have a Coakley update.
Okay, the borings on Breakfast Hill Road for the water line are scheduled to be completed this week. Tuesday and Wednesday, weather permitting. And other than that, that's all I have on that.
Okay.
I have a question.
Nothing in,
A question on the borings. Were they strictly on Breakfast Hill Road or did they?
No. They were on Maple, Sunnyside, Windsor Green, September, Falls Way, yes.
Were the residents notified in any way that that was going to happen?
Only through our website and on Facebook that the engineers would be down in that area doing borings. And each day that they were out, we did let the police department know if they got calls that they were there.
Anything else, Jim?
No.
Okay. Next item is Van Etten Drive, the HOA concerns.
Yeah, I forwarded to the board a letter that we received regarding a few remaining items, some scrap wire and cable that were beneath the brush pile. The brush pile was removed, but not the scrap wire. There's a broken tree limb that's hung up in some trees, which happened from a storm. There's a pile of stone on the east side of the driveway into the recreation area that needs to be removed. And the HOA is requesting all documents, tax filings regarding Windsor Meadows from the developer.
Okay.
That, I don't think that's complete, from the letter that we sent you. I mean, there was 2 copies. The first one went to you in March, and the next one in May, and then another one in July.
This is the July one?
Yeah, so.
Resolution.
Oh, there is a resolution on,
Well, the $1,500 fee.
has been paid or has not been paid?
Not paid.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and that it's not a tree limb, it's a huge tree. It's been there since they started. I'm sorry. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Michael Smith, 19 Van Etten Drive. Thanks for the voters too, by the way. Did you work for Green?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Did, yeah.
All right, awesome. Yes, you were awesome. And we miss James too, by the way. Yeah, so there was, I mean, this is just an ongoing, we just really need to get some resolution to these concerns. There's some money still held, and I think that money would be well spent to put that place where it should have been, somewhat.
Okay.
And I think we've gone several months with this, in good faith, a shake hand, a small town, let's walk, let's do this. And it didn't come to fruition, so.
Okay, I mean, I don't see any reason
Well,
why.
I can tell you as the planning board representative, there's a difference between the relationship the town has based upon the public way and issues that you might have with a developer that are on private property. And so when it comes to something like a pile of stone that's in the right of way on the road in the recreation area, that's something that we can deal with. When it comes to something like tax documents relating to your HOA, that's not something that we can deal with. Because that has to do with your relationship based purely upon that HOA. So I can tell you right now, we have not had a request from the developer to release the $5,000. We still have that money. Yeah. However, if you came to us even a year from now and said, well, we'd like that $5,000 because of the tree that's hung up on private property and we haven't got tax documents from the developer, we could not pay that out to you. Because I'm not saying anything about a tax document, but I'm saying that there was a good faith handshake from Troy Thibodeau, who had the admiration of the select board the last time I attended this meeting. You even requested that I work well. Do you mind working with Troy? I bought his home. I know what I'm dealing with. We have an association that we are proud of and have tried to do the tax documents. Troy has been no help there. Troy walked out of that development with promises of putting in some shrubbery, blah, 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 blah. Well, you know what? Nickel and dime it to death. It comes down to $5,000 and no more. He was given back money when he shouldn't have been. Behind the backs of our homes. We came in blindsided. There you go, there's your, whatever, what was it, $25,000, $30,000, boom, there you go, Troy, all but $5,000. He could stand to clean up, or we could stand because we now have worked with a management company who is aggressive, they'll make that place beautiful. But you know what?
debris is still left in the culvert. It's stoned down there. He never finished it. It never was finished. These people spent over $600,000 on their home, okay? They deserved a little bit more than that. Now we're subjected to all the delays at the bank, all of this, all of the tax stuff. We can't even get the fields bushwhacked without a maintenance company having those documents. What I'm saying is, I don't think $5,000 needs to go to Troy Thibodeau. It needs to go to the homeowners association and put that place back together.
And the distinction, again, I have to make is if it has something to do with the public right-of-way, then that's something we can help you with. If it's off of the public right-of-way, we can't help you with that. That is your relationship, the civil relationship with the developer. It has nothing to do with the town. So, if it has to do with the public right-of-way.
Okay, so we're not talking public right-of-way, we're talking about these particular issues here.
Well, the stone that's on the area into the recreation area, that would be part of the right-of-way. If there's debris that's in a culvert that's part of the public right-of-way, we can deal with that. A hung-up tree and some civil relationships based upon the association itself, we can't help you with that because it doesn't have to do with the public right-of-way. Those are civil matters between the association as it now exists and the developer.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, my name is John Gilbert. I live at 9 Van Enden Drive. I'm the president of the HOA. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Sampson, about the tree. And we have another informal agreement with the developer that he will contribute $500 to getting that tree down. So we'll see how the follow-through is on that. The $1,500 was the resolution to the driveway issue that the board heard about back in December. And as Michael says, you had asked him to work with the developer. The resolution was the developer came out, looked at the property, that he and Michael together, in my presence, reached an agreement that he would give Michael $1,500 to try to do some diversion and some restoration of landscaping issues that have been affected by the drainage. That was conditioned on us sending a letter to the board indicating that that agreement had been reached. And we sent that letter. There has been no payment as of this time. That is resolving an issue that's in the public right of way.
And I would agree with that.
And so, and then so stone, that issue. The other issue is that wire and material is, I actually believe that's sitting on town land.
Okay.
In that area B. That was deeded over to the town as a part of the development process.
So we can work on that.
And that's a hazard because it's all sitting at the surface, and if you walk through there and the grass has grown up at all, you'll fall right through that for all railroads.
Plus you couldn't mow it because you'd hang right.
Oh yeah, it would destroy any more that you put out.
Okay, and that's something we can deal with. So at this point, Karen, can we send a letter to the developer indicating that unless we hear from him within the next 2 weeks that we are going to seek to release from that bonded amount the $1,500, Mr. Smith, and then whatever determines to be a reasonable amount to remove the debris from the right-of-way, whether it be stone or wire or whatever else.
I took a walk over there Saturday to see what was going on. I saw the pile of stone. I spoke with the gentleman that lives to the left of the access to the common area. He said he had a tractor and he had already pushed over the stone. And he believed that the wire was already gone, so he couldn't show it to me, but so I don't know if it's there or not.
No, the wire's down the other end. It's not on that end,
okay.
in that area. It's in off area B. Behind the, the old Liberty Hill Road comes in, and then that kind of curls around to a conservation trail. There's another stretch that curls around to that open space called Area B.
And it's still there?
I haven't looked at it in like 2 weeks, but the last time I looked, it was still there. So.
Okay.
But the stones have been taken care of?
Stone was taken care of by the homeowner. I don't know if it's exactly how he wants it, but.
And this is what's happened. I mean, he's just left a place a mess, and fend for yourself. So, I hope you don't give him back his money with a smile on your face, because he certainly didn't do Greenland any justice.
Okay, well, we will do what it is within our power to do. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It'd be frustrating for me too, so we will do what's within our power to do. And we'll send them a letter.
So we can ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next is hillside drainage.
Yes, they do. They have the 5 pages with all the alternatives. They have everything but the maps. This is in the area that I've talked to the board about a few times, that we discovered the drainage problem, and this problem mostly because of what was happening in the road, and resident on the far end on the left-hand side was getting water more in his basement than prior to us doing the work on the road. So we did a dye test to see if we could see that the town was at any fault for the water getting in, and the dye did make it into the cellar. So it did show that the old abandoned drainage line is still somehow connecting in to that property. And what we had found when we were doing that, the replacement of those lines back a few years ago, was that several of the properties, when they were built, were tied into the town's drainage line with sump pump holes. And likely this is one of the same problems, and along with Underwood's recommendations that Paul can explain, does include closing up the sump pump hole. No more connection.
Okay.
The dye test took less than an hour from the time I put it in the upper drain till it was in his basement. It was fast. And this guy's been through a lot, and probably since this winter to now, he's flooded 5 times. The problem we had, if you look at the pictures on page 4 of 8,
He doesn't, they don't have all the
all right.
pictures. They have, well, they have some of the pictures. Oh, good, you have those.
Okay. How we don't know where the drains switch over from clay to corrugated? As you, oh, okay, you do have them?
Yeah.
As you notice, on the clay side, we got in maybe 12 feet with a camera. On the corrugated side, we got in a foot. So we don't even know the true condition of the whole pipe.
Okay.
We did find one of the new drains from the street got narrower up there, so the drains that were in the street are now in the front lawns. That one of the new drains in the street actually ties into the old system. So you're actually taking water from the road and putting it in the old drain, which we thought was abandoned. So we're actually putting a lot of water down there, which is pressurizing just saturation and coming up through his floor.
Okay, so that would be step 1, and that's in the interim measure, is to close that connection?
Having a long discussion with Ben last week and walking it, he's in favor because of the water, how they slope the land, all comes, it's a big hill, as you know. And he thinks the smartest way is to reline that pipe from the drain at Shoup's property and drain it right into the brook, which wouldn't require any special permits, we're just fixing an existing basin.
Okay.
If we replace it, we'd have to get all the permits because of Pickering Brook and all that.
Okay.
Abandon it, we would have to cap it in 2 places. And then just totally cap it. Will that help him out there? We have no idea.
Okay. And so physically, how would you restore that pipe and line?
They would have a company come in. He's actually got some prices down on one of the pages.
Yeah, that would be alternative number 2.
Alternative number 2. Where they, how we explain it, they put this sleeve in there and then fill it up with some type of concrete and it puts a liner inside the
Yeah,
pipe.
it's fold-in form PVC.
And that's the one he was most fond of.
Okay, but it sounds like you get in about 8 feet on the clay pipe and then you hit some obstruction.
Yes, and the clay pipe wasn't all that bad shape as breaks. You could see a little bit of grass coming in through the seams.
Okay.
The joints, but the machine that they have looks like a little Mars rover.
Yeah.
And it just couldn't get through the debris that was in the pipe. It kept on getting hung up.
And so if you were going to do that, how would you clear the debris out of the pipe?
They would have to have the company come down with a pressurized hose and feed it down through and blow it out.
Let's suppose that, especially where it turns into corrugated metal, that it's totally collapsed.
We won't know that until we do it.
Okay.
Now, last year, Portsmouth came down and did me a favor when he was flooding bad. We actually went from the Brookside, got in there so far and opened it enough where it was draining, and his basement stopped instantly once I got that blockage out, the pressure from the floor. So, I mean, that tells me that that's how much saturation it was.
Okay.
Are you familiar with the house? He put it, okay, the original house sits up high.
Yeah.
He put an addition on his mother's house. I would say
Below grade.
it's like 8 feet below the road.
Yeah.
So, and there's, in the backyard slope, that the whole back of the development goes to his back of his yard.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't a good design, I'll put it that way.
Perfect storm of
Yeah, if you,
Yes.
yeah, if you look at page 2, the picture on page 2
Okay.
gives you the view of, you can only see half the garage door.
That was okay. That's what that's looking for.
Yeah.
And so,
Is this at the bottom of the hill?
Yes.
It's actually in the brook.
Down here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Down here.
it wouldn't
Yeah,
be
at the
allowed
very-
today.
So when they
It's-
I don't remember the whole project over there. It didn't go down into that circle, it went back up and land on the.
What happened is there's actually,
I had to see it, that's all I did.
there's a huge pipe in the road which is not being used.
And it's all-
Because they were gonna have a rain garden. And that got canceled.
Good.
So they capped the 2 ends of that pipe, which comes up at the intersection.
Okay.
So there is a massive pipe in the middle of the road, which is not being used. It's capped off at each end.
Yeah.
So what they did is, halfway down the road, the catch basin that they put in goes down the side street.
Onto
then-
Meadow,
Onto Meadow, and then goes down.
goes catty corner into
But
that.
we found out by the camera that the line does tie into the old system. So we're taking water from the road and putting it into a pipe we thought was abandoned.
So, all right, I'm just trying to understand, before the drainage project happened, he didn't have this problem?
Correct. And
Not
that,
to this extent.
Not
He
to this
did have,
extent,
he did have water problems, mostly from snow. that-
coming down his driveway, so they actually made like a speed bump going in his driveway, so when it
And
goes
it
down
would
there,
melt,
it
it would
deflects it
melt.
right into the brook,
Right.
above ground.
Not like that, so they.
Yeah.
okay.
Is it a possible alternative to just take the pipe in the road and fill it with concrete? Just to stop all that drainage from the road? Or do we then just cause a sheet flow that causes the same problem?
I don't know enough about the upstream. We got a water road up, so that water's coming down those properties inside the drains that are in the lawns.
Yeah.
To that point, if we cap that, I say we'd have to cap all the way down every drain to totally seal that.
What does Underwood say? What do they think is the?
Right now, Ben is going for the reline. That would be his first choice.
How much was that?
15?
Alternative 1, alternative 2, 25,000?
Yeah, 25,000.
Estimated cost $25,000. C is, of course, is total replacement, and what he wanted to stress on that is, that's even if they would let us go
Yeah.
right into that brook, which I don't think Evan Lewis would let us. Or we would have had the original pipe.
Right, that's when
So
we
to me,
had an
C is,
issue with the Wetlands Board at that time. that they didn't want us putting any more drainage towards Pickering Brook right there. And that's why we did the kitty corner across to Meadow where we have the existing long drainage easement.
So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go with option 2. To me, that makes sense.
Yeah, one just,
Makes sense to you?
we don't have enough, yeah, because one, we don't have enough information if we cap this, if we actually gonna make it worse. And when Portsmouth came down and blew what they could out for me at that time, I mean, it was winter time, and once they opened that up, that water just flowed and its pressure stopped.
And right now, this is the only property that's having the problem. That's not
Yes.
to say that if we weren't to do, if we were only to do the capping of that, that the problem wouldn't just reoccur at the next house up. So I actually think alternative 2 is proactive for any future problems as well.
All right, motion?
I would move that we go with option 2 for $25,000. We certainly have to get this guy's problem fixed.
Okay, I have a motion, about second.
I'll second it. And
For
then
discussion.
just talk to it, and just simply say, I think it's important that you work with them and supervise the work. Because they're gonna start, I take it here with before we go into the alternatives, there'll be an interim measure. Are they going to do the interim measures or just immediately go into the?
No, they will do because the first thing would be having that company come down and try to clean that pipe out.
Okay.
If that fails, then relining's out of the picture.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. And so I think what I would like is I'm happy to authorize it so that if you can get it done, you can get it done.
Yeah.
But if you run into problems, please come back.
Yes, we'll have to come back because that option's no longer available.
Okay. Any other discussion? I have a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, recreation building update.
Okay, in your packet, you have the 2 proposals for repair of the cement building. Part of the options to be considered was repairing the cement building, moving the electrical from the cement building to the larger building, and or replacement, demolition of both of the buildings and addition of 1 new building. So we have prices at this point now for the repair of two repair estimates for the Crasco cement building.
I have a question. Meyer and Sons, if that's not.
No, that wasn't running. Actually, Jim met with these people, not me. One thing Jim talked to me today about, he was more in favor of Peter Fuller due to the fact he went down there, dug a test hole, and saw all the damage underneath the pad.
So he has a better grasp of what's
Yes,
going on.
on the damage that's actually underneath there.
Right, and his work takes it a step further too. The one project, the 4100, is just repairing that corner, fixing the building itself. This is actually, I think the Fuller proposal takes it a couple of steps further with some trenching and drainage around the building, preventative stuff on top of it. It says includes necessary tree and drainage work behind the building, cutting back vegetation 20 feet from the building, digging a drainage swale to allow runoff from the hill to flow away from the building. Trying to do some preventative work at the same time.
And then, of course, he has $3,500 for a scoreboard, Chester. You were gonna look into that with the rec department?
I will.
Scotty Perkins spoke to me about that.
When you say that's 3,500 with the scoreboard?
No, for a new scoreboard.
Oh.
Which is in that bid.
Which is part of the bid.
All right. All right.
Because we've talked at other meetings about the scoreboard.
Somebody to donate one for it.
Okay.
Advertising.
All right.
I'm a little confused. So Peter Fuller's bid includes the 3,500 for the new scoreboard, is that correct?
Yes.
And Meyer and Sons didn't even put a bid in?
His was just a repair on that corner only. He broke it down in 3 different ways on how to repair this, fix it, rebuild, different ways.
And you're thinking we can get the scoreboard donated?
I think so.
So then this $9,100 would,
Although if you read the Fuller quote closely, at the summary part at the end, he's talking about cut trees and drainage swale, $2,000. Okay, restore existing building number 1, $9,100. So that looks to me to be $11,100.
Right. This is the option of demoing this is for the building on the bottom as well. Demoing that existing building.
That was $2,400.
Yes.
There's several bids through this. We're talking, apples to apples is just restoring building 1.
And I'm just trying to compare as much as I can.
Building
number 1 is the only thing that Meyer talked about.
Correct.
And he was $4,100 to repair. Now, if I'm looking through the Fuller bid towards the end, it says, restore existing building number 1, $9,100.
Correct.
So there's a $5,000 difference between them.
Yes.
Okay. But then he's also talking early on about the need to cut trees, vegetation back 20 feet, and then also a drainage swale. That does not appear to be in his $9,100.
And neither does the new scoreboard, as I read it.
That's right. I'm just trying to be clear on what he's saying.
Right.
That's the new building.
Although, yeah. See, at first he's talking 14.6, then 16.7.
Right, yeah, 91.
Yeah.
To restore the existing building is, with the scoreboard is 14.6. Without the scoreboard, brings it to the 91. And that option does include the necessary tree and drainage work behind the building.
I don't think it does.
Well, that's where the asterisk is on the first page.
Although he's saying, in the first part, he's saying, both options above have to do with 14,600 and 16,700, not 9,100.
Well, this is ambiguous. It doesn't, 2 and 2 don't make 4 in this thing.
He was talking about so many different things, I don't know what he's really saying he would do.
I think what we need to do is put down step by step what needs to be done, and then send this back out again, so that we,
I can get hold of him and say,
Right,
can you just
break it
make this a
down.
little bit more
Yeah,
clearer for the board on
exactly,
exactly
yeah.
what you want in the
Because
prices?
Yeah.
He's bouncing all over the place.
forget the scoreboard, because,
Well, talk to Scotty Perkins, I was with him the other day, and I think he said he knows where you can get one.
Right, and because the 2,000 for the cut trees and drainage swale, that is an option too if they were to replace the building as in the second option, but in a new location.
Right.
That would avoid tree and drainage work and create a 2,000 offset towards electrical work.
Right.
So the other part is if we repair it in place, we don't have to relocate any electrical.
Correct.
Okay. So what we really need is, why is there a $5,000 difference between these two bids for just that restoration work? I don't understand why.
Right, yeah.
And I'll have him put that and clarify that up.
Okay. He may have a good reason, I just don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple ways that would interpret this, I agree with you.
Yeah.
all right, so we'll table this for the next meeting.
Right.
All right, just one building, Caswell Field. I had a friend of mine just go down and give me a rough estimate, 100% of the wood replacement, trim, T111, everything. The roof's brand new, the floors are brand new. Just to replace everything was $8,500. and that comes primed, everything's primed. 91 if you want, instead of pine, trim AZAC.
Yeah.
So, you know, that gives us a rough idea to restore that building, what it would be.
All right.
And as for your tennis court, there's been no stress lifting those nets up at this point.
Good, okay. So it's just a question of teaching them how to properly release tension to get the nets down?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I didn't understand until I spoke to your wife last Thursday, what she was looking for.
And we'll get that straightened out.
Pickleball is new to me.
Yes, Recreation is actually going to set up a program on how to play pickleball and,
Yeah, the contact has started.
oh, it already,
Okay. All right, great, thank you, Mark.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It was
go to
new.
Florida and you see it
Yeah, it's all
everywhere. Yeah.
When she came up to me, what the hell's pickleball?
Okay. Under other old business, we have professional service fees for the library to La Valley Architects.
Yep, that's the first payment. The trustees are requesting, they've signed the invoice, they're requesting withdrawal from the capital reserve fund to pay that. That is, as far as I can tell, it's the schematic drawings that they need to have to go to the planning board.
Okay.
That's the only thing on the invoices that shows the schematics.
Right? Yes, ma'am. Marcia McLaughlin. This is the, a payment in the fee schedule that you all were presented with earlier in the year that you saw that you had no problem with.
Okay. All right.
Let's see, now.
$72,496.88.
I move that we authorize the payment of $72,496.88 for the La Valley Architects
Okay, so
invoice
authorize the withdrawal from the capital reserve fund.
of $72,496.88.
I have a motion, do I have a second? All right, I will second it. All in favor? All against? Kind of at a deadlock here.
Well, excuse me, Marcia McLaughlin. I don't think that, do you all have the authority to refuse to pay a bill? The capital reserve fund is something that was voted on by the citizens and approved. We are just asking for the release of the funds. And we're moving forward with our project and doing what you all have requested of us, and so that we can go to the planning board on the 2nd of August with our drawings and all the information that they've requested. And I would like to see you all act in the interest of the citizens and not what you all necessarily like or dislike. As Vaughn said, at one of the meetings with citizens in May, my job as a selectman is to do what the town, and the exact quote is what the town meeting tells me to do, whether I like it or not.
Okay.
I'll be happy to speak to my vote.
Go ahead.
We just heard about an entire fire department project that could be done for less than $70,000. We're talking about an architect's fee here of $72,000 that doesn't get us even close to the type of plans that would be necessary to yield a contract.
That's where you're wrong, Mr. Sanderson.
Then please help me out.
I don't have the drawings, I can't speak to it, but these are the schematic drawings that will be able to allow us to move forward with the project. And this is a much larger project than what I believe I heard Mr. Ricci say that you're talking about spending for the fire station to begin with, like a third of the amount.
I'm sorry, I still think this fee is excessive and my vote is no.
Well, I know, Paul, that you have just been against this. from the very
Marcia,
beginning.
you heard my vote.
I know. Chester?
You've heard my vote.
Chester, could you?
You heard my vote.
I heard you, I'm speaking.
You heard my vote.
That's it. Okay, the vote has been taken. We're at a stalemate
Well, we'll
here.
have to, we'll come back to you after Mr. Hussey is back sitting on the board.
Okay? All right. Next item on the agenda is the review of the town administrator's weekly report. Karen, you want to make some comments on?
What I can update, there was no written town administrator's report, and I apologize for that, but I was up to my neck getting the revaluation done, which I can report on that. The commercial revaluation, today was the first hearing day. We've had 8 or 9 commercial properties question their assessments. 4 of the hearings were held today with 2 adjustments made. On Friday, there are 3 more hearings, 1 by telephone for the truck stop, and then I think on Friday is Lowe's and 1 other. But overall, there've been very few. The residential letters all left today. They're out in the mail with everybody's proposed new values. Those hearing dates are set for August 6th and 7th. Mr. Haywood will be here along with a second agent from 9 to 4:30. So we have opportunity for 88 hearings. If more are needed, he will set up another day. And he's going to have staff here so that if someone has a question, they can go out, the other appraiser can go out with them and take a look at the property right then and there so that he can come to decisions quickly.
Okay.
The goal is to have all of this completed by August 15th. That way we can prepare the MS1 for the board to submit to DRA by September 1st. The tax rate will be on time. The overall change was about a 13%. Property was 13% is the overall change, with some properties being at 8, 9, and 10, and others being at 16 to 20, depending on areas, neighborhoods, based on sales over the past 5 years. Both commercial and residential went up approximately the same percentage, which keeps the same balance between residential and commercial, which is nice. So that equity is still there. Just looking at our current tax rate of $16.64 with the 13% increase in property values, not looking at what was approved at town meeting for March for the school and the library and the town. And the county, we don't even know what county will come in at. That $16.64 relates to a tax rate of approximately $14.50.
Okay.
So residents can do the math. And the list will be online of all the property values, and it'll be on the Vision website as well. Those will be submitted in the morning. So they can compare, if they think their house is similar to this neighbor's, to see if they both went up approximately the same. But for the most part, I would say 70% of the town won't see an increase in taxes based on the current values. 20% may see an increase, 10% a decrease.
Okay.
But that is not taking into consideration the spending. That will be determined after the September 1st.
I would hope at that time too, we get a better feel for reserve for abatements.
Right. And the undesignated fund balance, which we'll get to in a minute with the MS5, is up to $1.8 million.
Okay. The reason I was making the comment is obviously in a year like this where you could expect more commercial appeals and more residential appeals, that we would want to make a larger reserve in our tax rate setting for abatements.
Right. We average around $25,000 that we hold in overlay. On a reevaluation year, I recommend that we put that at $75,000.
Yeah. And we'll have to take a look at it depending upon how those hearings go.
Okay.
Because
So far, the hearings today went well. The only one that he's going to be following up with today is Boise Cascade.
Mm-hmm.
The property owner was in, and they worked on a couple little things because he owns an abutting property as well, and that's being adjusted. The Boise Cascade, he had just forwarded that the letter with the new assessment to Boise Cascade just recently. And that needs to go to Idaho or Boise, Idaho, to their real estate division, and they're gonna get back. Just to make sure that because they're the ones that pay the taxes, that they're in agreement with what shows on the property record card.
Okay.
But Steve Traub is our commercial contractor for the revaluation, and he does an excellent job.
Yeah, he does. Okay. Any other comments?
Another good recycling load. We got notified today that our load from this weekend was 100% clean.
And just a sidebar on that, I was at the transfer station and I noticed that they were shutting the doors.
Yes.
And they were in the middle of giving some education to one of our residents about they can't throw wooden baskets into the...
Yeah, I went up there after the meeting on the Monday. I went up there on Wednesday and I did see that they had the doors open. And so I asked them, like, you're overriding, and like, well, it's going to cause a delay. And I'm like, no, cause the delay. Cause the delay. And they're like, all right, we will.
But all in all, they do a good job.
They do a great job.
I mean, they watch for stuff that shouldn't go in there and everything else, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to have two perfect loads that quickly is excellent.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the MS 535.
Move to approve the MS 535 as prepared, submit to DRA.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need that front page signed. It's submitted electronically, but then I have to photocopy the signature page to send in.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the poll license.
Okay, this is going with our new poll license wording, so it does automatically indicate the taxation. And this is the replacement of an existing pole on Ocean Road.
A motion?
I was just wondering, where in our language do we have our tax?
It's based on the our existing ordinance. So it refers to what we currently have in place.
But this document does not.
From what I understand, we don't alter the document that they send us. It goes based on what we have approved as a town with the taxation.
I don't know, they're just giving us a particular license to erect and maintain poles at a certain location.
Right, and it's the existing pole, it's just a replacement.
Okay. Well, I want to be careful about that, and
Okay.
make sure that our taxation language is in there. That's the only objection that I'd have to it. Nothing wrong with what they're doing, but I can imagine down the road that they would argue, wait a minute, there's no tax language in here.
They've been notified that we held a public hearing and that our pole license verbiage was changed.
But not
So,
this.
right, I can see if they, or maybe retype theirs.
Okay, see what you can do on that.
All right.
Okay,
Yeah, there's no rush, because they
Yeah.
technically end up replacing the pole without waiting and.
Without a license anyway, but I'm just afraid here that this particular language doesn't have that tax language in it.
Okay.
Good thought. All right. Veterans credit.
Okay, this is a resident at 15 Tidewater, and he qualifies based on the time served and New Hampshire residency. And it is a regular veterans credit, not the all veterans credit. And it would be for 2019.
Move we approve veterans tax credit in the amount of $500 for 15 Tidewater Farm Road effective 2019.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Corson Way right-of-way.
Okay, this is a request, it's a letter attached from Mr. Berg about access to this right-of-way. Prior to it being named Corson Way, it was a right-of-way that led basically to Route 95. And it was on the maps as an unnamed right-of-way. back several years ago in the late 80s. It was developed by Mr. Cook, and he built a house to the right and three duplexes down in the lower area of Post Road. And they access, and through this 911 process, it had been in just a long driveway with Post Road addresses. It was renamed Corson Way, but it's still a right-of-way. But when it was developed, there was a small bridge put in for backlot access to one of the duplexes. And at that time, some boulders were placed and moved. Well, the alteration has left Mr. Berg's use of that right-of-way to access his backland impassable. Prior to that, his son owned one of the lots up above it, so he would be able to go through that land. His son has since long sold that house and it's a new owner, so he can't get to the backland to brush hog or put it down. I think he is basically requesting that the board ask Mr. Cook to remove the debris boulders so that the right-of-way can be opened up.
And I asked Karen whether or not Mr. Berg had approached the owner himself and asked him. I guess he hasn't.
No, he hasn't.
When were those houses built? On Corson Way? A long time ago.
Pretty long. Yeah, I'm going to say 25 years. Long before I started working here.
What's your thought? I always like to see.
Thinking it's been a long time that that's been plugged up.
Right, but see, but his
But
son
still-
Eric, if you look on the map, as it goes down, Lot 2B, no, Lot 2C was owned by his son Eric. So,
2C was?
where am I looking? No.
6A. 6A. 6A was something.
Yes, I'm looking at it backwards. Yes, 6A. And so Wally went through there.
Isn't the only house on the right?
Yeah, basically, because 670, the number 4 comes off Post Road.
Yeah, that's the old one house. Right.
Yeah. So he cut through, he could go down Corson and cut through what was Eric's house, and he sold that. So now he needs to go further.
You know, where I'm coming from is this is a personal problem. I don't think it's something the selectmen really have a right to get into. I can't go.
Except that it's an existing right-of-way. It's not a driveway that was built for those developments in-house.
All right.
The right-of-way existed prior.
I wish I knew the status of it. The only way for us to really tell the status of it is to get the planning board file. And that would be helpful. That's what we don't have here is the planning board file of the subdivision that created Lot 6A and created Corson Way. And at that point, we'd have a much better idea of whose land this actually is.
Okay, we can bring it back to the next meeting with
Yeah,
a little
because
bit more.
I just don't want to get into personal
Right.
things. That's not really our.
No, I totally agree with that. I know that the path existed, and before it was Corson Way and had an address, it was called, for the planning board's sake, it was the unnamed right-of-way.
Okay.
And it's almost like no man's land, because each property boundary was apart from that lane, and the lane was almost, it didn't
Yeah, I
really
think
get
if you can
owned
get that
by.
information, that would help us clarify what
I mean, if it's obstructed in violation of a planning board approval, that's a very different thing than if it's just obstructed and it's contested.
Yeah, we'll do it next meeting, and I'll bring more information.
Okay. Okay, the next is the projects of regional impact.
And what I can add to that I learned today is We had contacted Attorney Radigan to see if he could represent the town on this. He is on vacation, which is why he hadn't gotten back to me, but his office got back today, and he has a conflict. He represents Lonza.
Just so you know, this has to do with, Lonza is expanding. They're adding another 500 employees.
1,000.
1,000 employees. You know, you can see what the
Route 33 looks like
the
now.
impact of Pease is done just for the
I used to
traffic
work
along
with
33. So we'd like to have a little say in it if we could, but, you know, so we're just asking that they listen to what we have to say too. So I just wanted to.
Right. The city of Portsmouth has said that they are advisory only to the Peace Development Authority, so that they feel they don't have the authority to declare it a regional impact. Mark Fougier got back to me today, and he disagrees with that, because if they're acting advisory to PDA and Lonza is required to go to the Portsmouth Planning Board, the Portsmouth Planning Board is required to go by statute as far as regional impact, not whether they're advisory or not. They still have to
So
follow
the
the
PDA
statute.
answers to the Portsmouth Planning Board?
No.
They say they do not,
They do not.
but Portsmouth does require the PDA developments to go to them.
In other words, PDA does not have any technical capabilities to deal with subdivisions, so they rely on Newington and Portsmouth in various parts of the base to give them technical support for their planning functions. So Portsmouth essentially is telling us, don't bother, you have nothing to tell us.
Right.
Okay, I will take them at their word, we have nothing to tell them. We certainly do have something to tell the PDA. We certainly do have something to tell Councilor Prescott. We certainly do have something to tell Senator Innes, because this has to do with the 10-year plan. Okay? The 10-year plan is voted on by the legislature, and the 10-year plan is moderated by the Governor's Council as part of the Governor's Advisory Commission on Intermodal Transportation. They do public hearings on the 10-year plan. And so therefore, Councilor Prescott definitely does have input into the 10-year plan. And so, in essence, what's happened is they've spent $1 billion on the Route 16 corridor side of Pease Air Force Base and $0 on the Route 33 side of Pease Air Force Base. And now it's coming to roost.
Right, and not only is Lonza doing their large development, in addition, Wentworth Douglas is adding 2 more buildings for a total of 3, and Revision Military is moving their national headquarters to Pease.
Yeah. So I agree with the city. We should ignore them and go directly to the PDA and to our other politicians working on the 10-year plan.
Okay. Okay. Make it so.
Okay.
Okay, any other new business anybody would like to touch on?
Well, just quickie, and this is probably more old business, but we had talked about adding a date onto our town logo, and that's kind of what we've come up with, to put the date at the bottom, so I don't know if anyone has any heartburn over that or any comments to make on it. But we felt that this is great, the 300, but it doesn't really tell us when it starts, when it ends, and this is a little more informative.
Yeah. Looks good. Yeah. Anything else?
No.
Move on to me. Oh, yes, sir.
Dennis Malloy. Regarding the regional impact and Lonza and all that, have we talked about what we'd like to see happen with 33 as a town?
The letter that we sent asking for the declaration of regional impact discussed widening of 33, particularly at the bridge.
The Winnicott
Bridge.
Okay.
Because it used to be that the traffic was clogged up for 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. Now it's more like 45 minutes in the morning and the evening. Yeah, you live on the other side of it. If I come in from the Stratham direction to come to work, At 8 o'clock, I can get in here. 8:30, I'm not gonna get here till 9 o'clock.
I know exactly the traffic pattern, I can monitor that.
Yeah, you have to time it just right. And I go home, I'll go home Post Road, because it'll take me 20 minutes to come from here to Stratham. And then it's fine.
And I've seen that traffic backed up way around the circle, going right into Stratham. Yeah.
And it's 99% is coming out of Pease.
Yeah, and as the chief would tell you, we also have significant accident history at Great Bay Road about to become Dearborn Road. And significant accident history at the bridge. So those would be two other important factors for DOT to be taking a look at that. But that's the choke point.
Right, that is the choke point. Even if they can do some kind of, and it costs money as well, but my thought was too is a coordination of signals. Tying all the signals together so that they're coordinated instead of a whole slew coming through at Target and getting stuck and clogged up.
Okay, so where do we put our heads together with the planning board and issue another letter?
Yes.
We can pretty much use the same letter that we did.
Yeah, and certainly we need help from the Regional Planning Commission, because they are the ones who do the initial work on the 10-year plan. And we're not on the 10-year plan. In other words, it's not even on the horizon.
It's on the list, but it never gets even.
It never passes muster to get to actual funding.
Right.
And so what I'm afraid is that if these jobs do come to fruition and these buildings are built, those employees are going to have a very nasty commute. Never mind those of us who live here now. Right. But it isn't going to be a very good advertisement for Pease if the place is that completely clogged up. Once they finish with the various bridge work, over the various little bay bridges, then they shouldn't have any problem in that direction. Right now, we're getting some of that diversion. The argument may be that when they finish, the diversion will stop, but not with 1,350 to 1,500 new jobs.
Well, and people don't want to go onto 95 with the toll. They stay on 33.
All right, well, let's, work on whatever it is.
Yep, we'll keep trying. And because if they can be declared a regional impact by whichever method, then it gets Rockingham Planning Commission on board.
Okay.
And that's when we can get the traffic studies, things like that done. That would be needed.
Yeah, and if we don't get anything positive from our next letter, then that letter next will go to the editor.
Our reporter is here.
No, but I mean, it's important that people understand that any more traffic is going to cause a further degradation of service. And that right now, we're not on any planning horizon at all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Would this be appropriate for a report from my liaison to the library?
Absolutely.
Okay. At the last trustees meeting, it was brought up that the library trustees had been contacted by the school board, and they were requesting basically the new room that's going to be built for the library be the place where voting takes place, rather than them closing off school because of voting. I know that Chip had approached them.
It would be the same parking lot.
Probably
It would be the same parking lot.
They wouldn't have to close school down because the voting would all take place there. So somebody, this goes to, the right to carry.
Right.
So
We discussed with the school department, maybe they had a teacher's workshop. Last year they had a teacher's workshop the next day, and it didn't happen that way because of the snowstorm. But there was talk of maybe they could do it on a teacher's workshop day when the students aren't in the building.
Right.
Because
this year
I don't think we're gonna have this room next year.
No, but some years we have 3 elections in the fall.
Right.
So I
I
guess
agree.
they're right.
I'd like to get it out of the school. I agree.
Well,
But we just get the students out of the school when it happens.
I'd like to get the students out of the school. I'd like to see how they could work that around.
Right, I spoke to the principal about that, and she was on board.
But I think the idea of having it in this new edition, if it ever comes to fruition, it's ridiculous because it just, there's not enough room as far as I'm concerned. I don't know.
And if we can have it in the new fire department room upstairs. It's gonna be a big room.
And parking would be available there. Part of the issue is that on voting day, the parking lot is so full with all the teachers that there isn't enough parking for the voters.
Right, but it does go to the right to carry though.
Right, it does go to the right to carry and the police officers being present.
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
letting people know that that's out there.
All right. Okay. Go on to manifests.
Okay. I have two manifests here. I move that we approve payroll manifest number 15 in the amount of $54,532.90.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. I have our general fund accounts payable manifest. Move we approve the attached manifest of unpaid bills in the amount of $1,070,790.08. And by the way, $1 million of that is to the Greenland School District for the 2018-19 school year.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other business to come before this honorable court?
Not for me.
Okay, just to let you know, Chester is graciously going to sit in for me. I'll be here, but at the next meeting, he's going to chair it. Okay?
Good.
One question on the snowplow contract. We need to get that bid out
Okay.
fairly soon.
I'll have it next week. I have it all written up.
Okay,
I want to show Paul Hayden.
all right, so we'll put it on the agenda for the next
Yep.
meeting? All right,
And we'll be happy to work with you in the interim.
Great.
yeah, because we're running out of time.
Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion to,
I move to adjourn.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.